Welcome everybody to They Cast from the Coast. My name is Adam Oz and I'm joined as always by Josh Lambert and Tim Johnson. Once again, Aaron Peerless couldn't join us, but we wish him the best. We shall continue with this amazing episode though. Tim, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, we are going to continue the theme from our previous episode, talking about like extreme classic movies. Extreme. This one comes from 1935. The Bride of Frankenstein.
Stay tuned. All right, Tim, give us the synopsis then.
Then?
Now?
Okay. Mary Shelley reveals that the main characters of her novel survived. Dr. Frankenstein, goaded by an even madder scientist, builds his monster a mate.
Nice. All right, so talking a little bit about the story on this one, and I'm going to be straight up front with everybody when I say this. I've seen Frankenstein a bajillion times. Bride of Frankenstein, I've never seen it in its entirety until I sat down to watch it for this episode.
Really?
And
Interesting.
I'm quite ashamed of myself over that one.
Because I was the reverse. Like, if you remember when I said Frankenstein, I've always seen pieces of it, but I never watched it fully. I've seen Bride of Frankenstein like a shit ton of times.
No, it's yeah, exactly the reverse situation here. This movie was very familiar to me in a lot of ways. So let's talk once again about the storyline here. I love the opening because it just kind of jumps in to show us Mary Shelley. I mean, an actress playing Mary Shelley, but to basically state that the events of the first movie were all a story that she had just written, and she has two gentlemen that are basically, clinging on to every word that she says, and it's a popularity scenario, and she proceeds to unleash upon them, like you say from the synopsis, the fact that the story doesn't end there, that there's a continuation that she's already got planned, and she proceeds to tell the story. I wish they would have kind of gone back to that at one point or another, like kind of like ended it with like her talking again, or like some sort of like an in the middle scenario. I wish they would have brought Mary Shelley back into it again later on, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is one of those movies, though, for the longest time, didn't really realize that it's like a sequel to Frankenstein. I mean, it quite obviously is, but like, it's one of those rare situations, like, this is almost like Empire Strikes Back to me, because I feel like this movie kind of surpasses Frankenstein in a lot of ways. I actually like this better than Frankenstein.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like what they started momentum-wise with the first story, they built upon it. I actually like the Bride. I liked it. I liked it better. And I mean, we're talking story now, so I can't really get into my opinions yet. So
no, for sure.
That'll be later.
So the story continues with it actually overlaps in the first one, which I thought was interesting because it takes place at the windmill with everything burning down, and Frankenstein has not yet been taken back to his housing, and you kind of see the overlap, because at the end of the actual Frankenstein movie, the original, like, the Burgermeister is like coming out of the bedroom, they're going to feed him wine, and he's like, oh, he doesn't need this right now, he needs to rest. So you know he's going to survive. But in this one, they kind of make it out to the scenario, they don't know if he's going to live or not, and you realize, okay, this is all kind of overlapping, which was kind of really cool the way that they went back and did that. We come to find out that Frankenstein's monster survived because the floor caved in, and there was like a waterway below the actual windmill itself that he basically, even though he's singed and damaged, he's survived by, being in the depths of this windmill. He works his way out, and this is where it takes a really interesting turn. Because we mentioned in the very first movie's review that we did that it shares only a couple of similarities, the first one with the book. The general overlapping story, but it's more of a revamping of the stage play, which was an adaptation of the book. But this movie, The Bride of Frankenstein, begins to take full chunks of the book and finally display it on screen, which is probably where, like someone like yourself, Tim, where you have a lot of love for this movie, especially more so than the first one, it's taking more from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, yeah, no, that's true. Because when I sat down to watch it this week, I was really happy. Like, I was really excited to watch. Like, yeah. No, I mean, Boris Karloff's Frankenstein is right, but like to add his female counterpart, and like I feel like she, to me, stole the scenes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because
she was only in it for like 15 minutes.
I know.
Like, it wasn't even introduced until like the final act.
Yeah.
Which is technically more than what it would have been in the book, because in the book, if I remember correctly, in the book it was like just minutes. Like she was only alive for minutes in the book too. And that was part of the reason why Frankenstein's monster was searching him out across the globe, was because he had basically destroyed the bride that he created for him. She was only in it for the last few, but it's so iconic.
Yeah.
Like, it's an incredible, like, I love the
it's iconic,
outfit.
Josh.
I love, the general makeup, the hair. How can you not, know?
Yeah, the hair is the only part that I really see bleeds into pop culture.
Well, the other thing that you'll find is that if you see a lot of renditions of her, she's always bandaged. Right? Yeah. So she's always wearing like a white tunic type of robe, and she's bandaged underneath. That's a very popular thing too when you see her. But the hair, for sure, is like the first thing that sparks out. Yeah. And come to find out, interestingly enough, I think we talked about this last time, but in reality, the wig was red.
Yep.
Blew my mind when I seen the picture of that for the first time, because you always see her with black and white hair because she's a black and white character in the movies, but it was actually bright red. And, with the white stripe up it. I thought it was amazing to see it. So taking from the book, the story goes along the lines of the fact that Dr. Pretorius, who was a colleague of Dr. Frankenstein's at the universities, has been playing with the idea of creating life himself. Now, this is where it gets a little kooky in the movie to me. Probably one of my least favorite scenes in this entire movie. Well done, I will say right off the bat, for the time in which this movie came out, the scenes were probably like, holy shit. But like looking back at it, it was kind of like, took me out of this. It like took me out of the story.
I completely disagree. I thought it was magical.
Really, with the little jarred creature.
Yeah, I thought that was so neat.
It was probably my least favorite part of the whole movie.
Could you imagine seeing
You're
that
my
in the
favorite,
30s?
least favorite part of the movie.
Thank you, Tim. I know I am. But like, I can imagine
that in the 30s, though.
Well, that's what I said. Like back then, and impressively, I will say, I even looked at Mick when we were watching this, when he uses the tweezers to pick up the guy. like, that was actually, like bang on. Like, even by today's standards, that looked actually really well, the way that they pulled that off. But it's like, it kind of took me out of the scenario, too, because I was like, little people in jars. To me, it would have been cooler if it was, like, you know, along the lines of what he actually ended up doing. Here's a beating heart. Here's a brain that's alive. You know, stuff like that. And then the jars would have been a lot cooler rather than just, I created little people, and they have their own little personalities, and they're in love with each other.
That was more impressive than bringing a corpse back to life. We've already established that Dr. Frank can keep the fucking heart beating for 3 weeks. That's no big deal. You don't see Dr. Frankenstein with little mason jars full of society.
Little mason jars full of society. That's amazing. So yeah, so Dr. Pretorius tries to get Dr. Frankenstein on his side. He won't really have it. They come to find the actual monster still alive, roaming the countryside. In a part straight from the book, he befriends the blind man, the blind violinist. And, I mean, that's straight out of the book. That's how we learned how to talk and everything. But in the book, it was slightly different. He was, like, living around the building and, like, learning from him, watching him. And eventually he made friends. But he got scared off when, like, the man's family actually came to visit or something like this. It was like his grandchildren or something. But in this one here, it's just, you know, the guys with the guns, the yokels in the woods with the guns. Oh, it's the monster. Shoot, shoot, and fire bad. But those scenes had some of the most iconic scenarios that I always remembered seeing. You know, like him puffing on the cigar. Good. You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit that I always remembered from this movie that I had seen, was when he started to talk and actually, like, you know, interact with people and stuff. It was fun.
It just felt like they jumped the shark so much when he was talking. I was like, this is so silly.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of feels it a little bit when you first think about it, but like I said, I kind of harken back to the book, because in the book, that's what happens, is that he begins to gain more of his humanity, so to speak, and he learns to talk and communicate appropriately, and it's just kind of corny-ish, the way that they brought it out, you know, in the movie.
I loved it! No,
yeah, I did too, actually. I really did.
It was corny. But whatever, it was 1935.
1935, yeah.
You weren't even alive then, Adam.
No judging. I wasn't even alive.
Like, that's a fucking insult. I'm sorry, I'm dumb.
Oh, man.
It's been a weird night, okay? It's been a weird night.
And then, you know, the story goes that to get Dr. Frankenstein on his side, Dr. Pretorius, who befriends the monster, kidnaps Elizabeth, makes him do his side of the promise to create the bride, the female character, and it ends in one of the most, in my opinion, iconic scenes in any of these old-fashioned movies, where Frankenstein's monster's humanity kicks in full gear, tells Elizabeth and Dr. Frankenstein to go, and he looks at the Dr. Pretorius and the bride and says, "You stay! We belong dead," and he like blows up the place and shit. That scene actually gave me goosebumps when I was watching this, because it is, in my opinion, like an absolute classic scene where he realizes, you know, he doesn't belong on this earth, and you know, it's like he's gonna take everything with him that doesn't belong here anymore. I thought it was good.
Biggest gripe I have: what is the film called?
The Bride of Frankenstein.
Which is the lead up. It is about the creation of the Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein's monster, technically, but he calls it the Bride of Frankenstein.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not the bride of the doctor. Have they just established at this fact that the monster's name is Frankenstein? Is that just established at this point now?
Pretty much, because...
We just accepted it?
Pretty much. But at the same time, like, it's the science experiments. It's Dr. Frankenstein, because there's son of Frankenstein too.
Yeah.
Whose son is that? Is it the son of the doctor or the son of the monster?
Oh, Josh.
I've never seen it, to be honest. I don't think I've seen any of it, to be honest, so can't wait to check that one out. But no, even though Dr. Pretorius says, the Bride of Frankenstein, like that, I think it's just in term of the fact that, you know, it's the creation, but it's a bride character. It's the creation of, and it's Dr. Frankenstein's creation, so he's just kind of throwing it out there that way.
All I know is horror snobs fucking jump down your throat if you call the monster Frankenstein. And here we
Don't
are
you
watching
fucking
a
dare.
film that calls it flat out the Bride of Frankenstein.
But I don't think that he's talking about it being the bride of the monster. I think he was actually referring to Dr. Frankenstein at that point.
What?
And see, the thing is that the name Frankenstein has become synonymous with the monster.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And like it's one of those things where it's like, get the fuck over it, because like it's like Frankenstein versus Dracula.
Yeah.
Well, it's not Dr. Frankenstein fighting Dracula. It's
right.
Frankenstein, the monster, right?
Yeah.
And how marketable is, you know, the monster?
Frankenstein's monster.
Well, the way that I've always taken it is, I know I kind of get jokingly snobbish about this because in reality,
Here we go,
he's
Josh,
credited
here
as the monster. But in reality, Frankenstein creates him, and he's almost like a child to him. He's a child of the Doctor. So therefore, technically, would a child not have your name? So technically, wouldn't that not be the Frankenstein himself as well?
Yeah, but we don't call you Miles. Miles Monster.
I mean,
we could.
The monster of Miles.
Yeah.
We could, but we don't. Like,
Miles!
I see what you're saying. I mean, hey, it's one of those things where it's like personal preference, and I mean, who the fuck am I to argue with pop culture? Everybody calls the monster Frankenstein. It's
correct.
always been Frankenstein. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it is Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
And this bride is the wife of the monster.
Yes.
Just to clarify.
Yes.
And the son, we have no fucking clue at this point. But let's continue.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen The Son of Frankenstein yet.
I definitely haven't. I mean, I might have seen like a late night clip or something like this at one point or another, but I don't even know if I have, to be honest. Josh, I'd really like to hear your notes on this movie.
Wouldn't he? He would, wouldn't
I?
Okay. My first viewing of The Bride of Frankenstein took place April 6, 2021 at 4:02 p.m. First note is I liked the callback to the original with the question mark for the name of the monster's mate.
Yes.
That was pretty good callback. That's another thing. She's not credited as the Bride of Frankenstein. She's just credited as the monster's mate. They're all Englishmen, but they're rolling their R's so hard. I don't know if it's just really bad dialect teachers or what, but they're talking like they're like Mexican or fucking Italian or something.
I picked up on that too, but me and Mick watch a lot of British comedies, like classic shit from like 60s, 70s, and 80s, and some of the snobby-ish characters roll their R's like that all the fucking time.
I've never heard tell of it before, but it was amusing. So it's all about Mary, who wrote Frankenstein. Is this one of the first meta films where they kind of poke at that?
It's a good way to put it, yeah.
You get the classic "he's alive" line. What the fuck is an owl doing in the burning wreckage? Like this windmill's collapsed. Old Frankie's down there wading water, and there's just an owl looking at him, looking and looking. The monster's really going to have a hard time getting out of this one. It's hard to argue for him being misunderstood at this point. He is a monster. He's just killing innocent old ladies and drowning them.
Kept wanting him to kill that really annoying fucking lady, though.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Oh, governor!
So Frankenstein's buddy also made a monster. Okay? What the fuck? His experiments are tiny little civilizations in mason jars. Love it. I couldn't imagine seeing this effect in the 1930s. Very cool even by today's standards. What the fuck is the monster eating when he's trotting through the woods and like comes across the shepherd?
It's like a carrot.
Is it just like a carrot or like a fistful of beets or something? Like he just wandered through the forest and
They're like, it's some random forest carrot.
yeah. Why did they tie him up? Are they gonna put him in like a zoo or something like Jurassic Park? They straight up went from burning him alive to putting him in chains into a dungeon. Imagine that. He broke out of the dungeon. I am so surprised. And I love this line that like the guard or police officer or whatever is talking, trying to control the crowd. He's like, "It's just an escaped lunatic. Nothing to be of concern." It's like
that on its
an
own.
escaped lunatic is something you should be concerned about.
Thought that too.
Yeah. This blind robed man just hangs out in his hermit home, playing the violin, stating obvious facts. If you look at all of his dialogue, it's like Captain Obvious. He's like, "I think you are a stranger. Period. I am blind.
Period.
Period."
You are hurt.
So Frank can understand English, but he can't speak it. That's a pretty serious development in this character. So now we know that he's not just grunting around and upset. He understands what's going on around him. He just can't communicate.
He did pseudo-understand by the events by the end of the first one, too.
Okay. Frank learning English is both extremely wholesome and extremely corny.
Wholesome and corny.
Oh, you do. You just feel for the monster. Good heavens, man. Can't you see? No. He's blind. You're a jackass. Why is it the monster seems to encounter fire so often in his very short life? Like, this man has seen more fire in his 3 days of existence than I have in my entire life.
It's fire bad.
45 minutes in, and I still ain't seen no bride. The monster is stealing a human being. Slave driver Frank is violating some serious labor laws. The monster's just like slapping around Dr. Frankenstein, making him work, and he's tired. Quote, "You will hear her from this electric machine," end quote. Yeah, it's a telephone. Pretty sure those were not that impressive, even in the 30s.
They might have been.
The slanted angles made me feel really uncomfortable. I don't know if you guys, when you saw that, when they were doing like some weird camera angles. Yeah, it was like predate Ramy Cam. It was very, very strange and jarring to see. 1 hour, 3 minutes, and we are finally able to see at least the corpse that will become the bride. I don't understand why the monster threw that little lackey off the side of the building. He was just trying to help him make his bride.
Because he tried to hit him with fire?
Yeah, but that's because he
fire
came out.
Bad?
Yeah, but Frankie, he started it.
Oh, he came up to see what was going on. The guy was like, get down, and started being... Frankenstein's like, get the fuck out of my face! And then the guy came at him with fire. So no, you know what? Frankenstein beat his ass.
Yeah,
and then threw his ass over the edge.
We get the "she's alive" line, which is obvious reference to the first one.
Beautifully done.
At this point, I said, "Why is it referred to as the Bride of Frankenstein when Frankenstein is the doctor?" And horror fans jump down your throat when you call the monster Frankenstein. Frankenstein was the original incel. He just couldn't get none. Oh, the monster bride wanted nothing to do with him. And I wrote, that's kind of a strange ending. So now we have Dr. Frank still alive, and he's going to go make more monsters, presumably, and additional sequels. And those are my notes from The Bride of Frankenstein.
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 Good notes, good notes, good notes. Yeah, you got a lot in there about this. Taking like you kind of said there earlier, some of the oddities with the way that they shot the movie. Yeah, it was a little jarring sometimes when you seen like the angles down, looking up, and
I liked it though.
Yeah,
It's something that you rarely see even in today's horror, and it looks good.
it definitely had a different. There was a similarity to the first movie, but there was a lot of differences in the way that they actually did the photography for this. And I noticed even at the very beginning, like when they were doing like the Mary Shelley scenarios, it seemed like an actual room, not a set.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I find that opening scene was very much like the first movie, in that it felt very much like a theater production.
A play.
Like the lines and everything, it felt very similar to like the first film, how it was ripped from a screenplay.
Fair enough. I just found there was more dimension to it when you actually seen like from afar and then kind of in the different angles. It was interesting to me. Let's talk about the effects in this for just a couple of moments here, because I mean, just like the first one, there's not a huge amount to get into, but one of the big things about this movie that I took a big notice on was that Frankenstein got injured. There was a couple of very noticeable things, and Mick pointed this out too. Like his hair was like singed, so it went from being like a couple of longer strands in the first one to being like little curly singed hair on his head. He has as well his left hand. It's almost like it was burnt up so bad. A couple of his fingers are like stuck together, and you can see like the burns on his hand. And that's why it's always being held like this. And you can see like I think it's his two middle fingers are like kind of stuck together when you look at it. The injury that he gets from the shot, the blood's there. There was some consistency to that. And his outfit itself, I mean, was tattered and torn throughout the movie. So it's not like just magically he was in a different costume, didn't have the injuries. He was consistently injured looking and worse for wear throughout this movie, which I thought was really well done. The lackey threw off the roof. That was a great dummy effect. I love the whole yelling as he's falling and shit. And I'm like, he already had his head beaten in, but whatever. Right, it was funny. But the biggest thing when it comes to the effects work in this movie, and it's not even to do with makeup, I fucking love the sets in this movie in the laboratory. Dope as shit, just like in the first one. Like, I love all the fucking gear that's just like crackling and coming to life, and it's fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. Like, you just don't get that feeling anymore. Like, when they try to do a movie today, they could try to replicate it as best they can, but there's just something so pure about the way that the laboratories look in this movie and the last one.
I think that's because you're seeing actual electronics crackle, and you're seeing actual fire.
It's true. The Josh committee would have like a problem with this movie. Yeah, unions and IATSE would not be happy today. Down. That's right. Anything else to add to the effects work, gentlemen?
Just that amazing mason jar scene.
It was good. Like I said, it took me out of it a little bit just because I was like, little people, whatever.
I wonder whatever happens to little mason jar people.
Oh, they're obviously going to suffocate now because their owner's fucking dead. And I don't think Frankenstein's going to go looking for them. So.
No, they were cloth lids. They could breathe.
Well, then they're going to starve then.
Do little mason jar people need to eat?
Well, if there's anything about it, like the King character learned how to fucking get out.
He can get
he's probably going to get them. There's going to be little people running around everywhere soon. So.
Greetings from Tromaville. I'm Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment and creator of The Toxic Avenger. You know, folks, when we're not making those great movies like Tromeo and Juliet and Return to Nukamai, a.k.a. Volume 2, the Troma team and I like to kick back and listen to They Cast from the Coast. They Cast from the Coast is really the best entertainment, the best education, and the best emotional liberation that Lloyd Kaufman can possibly experience. Thank you.
Tim, do we have anything further to discuss in terms of little nibbles of information? Do you know
Yes,
what I'm
I
speaking
have.
of?
Yep, it's time for little nibbles of information with Tim.
Little nibbles of information with Tim. Yeah.
All right, so to continue the trend, one of these pieces of trivia will be fiction.
Oh, boys. I'm excited.
And there's a lot of weird stuff. There's a lot of weird stuff. And regardless.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start off. Marilyn Harris, who played Maria, the girl the monster accidentally kills in the original Frankenstein, 1931, appears uncredited as another little young girl. She is the leader of the group of young schoolgirls who encounter the monster as he runs away from the blind man's burning house. Director James Whale deliberately gave her one word line, "Look," so she'd be paid more by the studio as an actor with a speaking role instead of just being an extra.
Aw.
I didn't notice her because I think all people back then kind of all looked the same. Seriously.
It's hilarious.
Elsa Lancaster said her spitting and hissing performance was inspired by swans in Regent Park in London. They're really, really nasty creatures, she said.
Can confirm.
Yeah. Boris Karloff protested against the decision to make the monster speak, but unfortunately was overruled. Since he was required to speak in the film, Karloff was not able to remove his partial bridge work that gave him the sullen, sunken cheek look that he had in the first Frankenstein. That's why the monster's face appears to be fuller throughout the sequel. Colin Clive's alcoholism had worsened since the first film, but James Whale did not recast the role because of his hysterical quality that was necessary for the film. Colin Clive being Dr. Frankenstein. Boris Karloff sweated off 45 pounds laboring in the hot costume and makeup and passed out multiple times while shooting the sequel. The original trailer promises a lifetime of entertainment in 2 hours. The final edit ran 75 minutes. The film was shot entirely in a studio. Jack P. Pierce altered the makeup of Frankenstein's monster for this film's predecessor to reflect that he survived the mill at the end of Frankenstein with some flesh burns and much of his hair singed off. This movie was shot in 46 days and cost approximately $400,000 to make.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of moolah.
Elsa Lancaster was only 5'4", but for the role, she was placed on stilts that made her 7 feet tall. The bandages were placed so tightly on her that she was unable to move and had to be carried about the studio and fed through a straw.
What?
Yep. Special effects experts John P. Fulton and David S. Horsley spent 2 days shooting Dr. Pretorius' miniature beings. The actors were placed in full-size bell jars and set against black velvet. These shots were meticulously lined up to match them in the shots of the interior set. The tiny mermaid in Dr. Pretorius' bottle was Josephine McKim, a member of the 1924 and 1928 U.S. Women's Olympic swim team, and was one of 4 members of that team to win 1928 gold medal in the 400-meter freestyle relay. McKim was also Maureen O'Sullivan's body double in a wonderful nude swimming scene in the year's previous Tarzan and His Mate. Interesting. Valerie Hobson, who plays Dr. Frankenstein's fiancée/bride in the film, was only 17 years old when she appeared in the film. Colin Clive, who portrayed Henry Frankenstein, was 35. Although the Bride of Frankenstein is one of the most iconic of the Universal monsters, she's only had, get this, Josh, 3 minutes of screen time in the entire film.
I believe it. Didn't seem like much.
No, it wasn't. Elsa Lancaster, sorry, never received on-screen credit as the bride. The character is listed as being played by ? There was an epilogue to this movie featuring Elsa as Mary Shelley, but it was cut from the final film. So there you go, Ad.
There you go, yeah.
Elsa had to spend days trussed up tightly in bandages. She needed to be fed by her dresser since even her fingers were wrapped tightly. According to one story, one of her stand-ins had a screaming attack of claustrophobia. Elsa's shock hairdo was held in place by a wired horsehair cage. Boris Karloff was paid $2,500 a week for a total of $12,500, a large sum in the mid-30s, but perhaps not enough to compensate for the 48-year-old playing the role in elaborate makeup and a heavy costume. And he already had severe arthritis, so he should have got paid more. Bela Lugosi was considered for the role of Dr. Pretorius. I didn't know that was Billy Barty. Interesting. Although virtually all of Billy Barty's scenes as the little baby in the bottle were deleted, he can still be briefly glimpsed in a wide shot of all the bottles on Dr. Pretorius's table. Billy Barty's like the famous little person. I don't know what the politically correct term is for a little person. I think it is little person.
From what?
He's been in so many movies in the 80s. He was in Willow. He was in fucking Masters of the Universe. He was in...
Oh, did he actually play the scientist in Masters of the Universe?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, how many more do I got? There's so many. There's so much trivia. So much trivia.
So many little nuggets.
Yeah, some of them are juicy.
Some of them are false.
Only one.
Pretty sure I have my eye on one.
Yeah, I've got a
body
couple
count.
that
Listen
are
to this.
suspicious.
Body count in the original cut was 21 people. This was trimmed down to 10 after pressure from the censors.
Fucking censors. Ruining movies even in the 30s.
Yeah. The Blind Hermit is a character taken directly from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. Dr. Pretorius, how do you say his name? Pretorius. Dr. Pretorius is a new creation closely resembled to the monster's personality in the book, where he becomes a cold-blooded murderer. The film decided to have the monster remain as an innocent character who only kills in self-defense or by accident in the final scenes, so he is credited the evil Pretorius as to fill the villainous role from the book. One of the film's deleted sequences shows the monster murdering the Burgermeister.
Not the Burgermeister.
Yep. Actors who appeared in both Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein include Boris Karloff, Colin Clive, Dwight Fry, Marilyn Harris. Marilyn, who died in the original, played the little girl. Dwight Fry was also killed by the monster in the original and is killed by the monster in the second film. And I think that is going to be it for Trivia Time with Tim.
Little nuggets of information from Sam.
Okay. Adam, I think you're probably leaning towards the filmed in studio, are you?
No, but
I'm thinking the 45 pounds of sweat. I think there's no way he sweated 45 pounds.
Why?
Okay.
What do you think, Adam?
She was not 7 foot tall. She was not 7 foot tall.
You think it's the stilts?
I think it's the fact that she was not in stilts.
I had that one down too. I got 3 written down here, but I think I'm going to lock in my answer with all filmed in studio. I don't think they filmed that all.
I'm locking in my answer too. Tim, who's right?
You're both wrong.
Oh!
You're both wrong. It was the 45 pounds.
Oh, I thought that was
okay, so the actual amount he did, Boris Karloff sweated off 20 pounds laboring in that hot costume and makeup.
Okay.
That was
one of my thoughts too, but
45 pounds is too much. I knew it was too much.
Well, I had to make it kind of not realistic, but realistic, and I added more to it, passing out and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But no, she was 7 feet tall with those stilts on.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was all 100% filmed in the studio.
Even put
100% filmed in the studio.
I'm
how
impressed.
do they make a lake in a studio?
The film was shot entirely in the studio.
Yeah, just because some douchebag wrote it on IMDb doesn't make it true.
It's not Wikipedia. All good. But if it's on there, we got to consider the truth to the scenario. Tim's just making up stuff. You know.
I only did it once. Okay?
Tim
I'm
goes
actually
in,
very
sets up.
That
some
was a
bullshit.
good one, Tim.
Thank you.
There was a lot of ones in there that were
Well, that's
tricky.
what
That was a good
I
one.
think. That's instead of making something completely up.
Oh, no. Don't just change subtle facts. That makes it too hard.
No, come on. It went from 20 pounds to 45, and then I said he passed out a lot and shit.
Yeah.
We passed out a lot and shit. And shit. That always makes it worth it right there. So, All right, gentlemen. Good conversation. It is time, in fact, now to rate this movie and give our final thoughts. I'm going to start with Josh.
I'm going to get raked over the coals for this one. I honestly didn't like this one as much as the original.
That's fair.
I was disappointed and set up for failure. I thought we were going to see The Bride of Frankenstein early on, and it was going to be some sort of, I don't know, film with the two of them monstering it up.
They did the math.
Instead, as I was hoping, instead what I got was a doctor that made Dr. Frankenstein look like a biatch. I like the fact that Dr. Frankenstein was the crazy one. I don't want this other guy that's even more crazy.
Okay.
I don't know. This one, it had its charms, it had its moments, I guess, but it wasn't as special, it wasn't as groundbreaking for me as the original. I think I'll stick it at a PG. It was pretty good.
I was
Still-
so ready for you to rate it S, and I was
No,
like,
it's not like
Booyah?
garbage.
You were
It's
gonna
not
boo-
shit.
You were going to get booed?
It was going to be
No.
like, we're going to need another Josh.
No.
It was alright.
Josh is irreplaceable.
Like, there was neat parts of it, and there was stuff that was like really innovative for the time.
Yeah.
But it just didn't keep me as interested. I probably won't watch it again.
Okay. Fair enough. Tim.
I'm completely other end of the spectrum. I feel that the monster in this, I don't know, like, because I read the book, and this felt more like the book, right? And I think you said that earlier, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, when he points and says, "The bride of," like, and he's pointing and he rolls his R's, like, that's a great fucking scene. Like,
It is.
I love it. I mean, I liked a lot of it. I am bummed out that, like, you know, the bride is only in it for 3 minutes. I wish that she had more of a story arc similar to Frankenstein's monster had in the first one. And, like, you know, they could have retold the same story, except she's a different monster and more advanced, or not as, like, you know, lumbering around or whatever. I love this movie. I had a ball. I liked it just as much as I did the first one. That could just be, I mean, because we're watching classic Universal monster movies, and the black and white aesthetic and the fucking like the look of everything and the acting and all that. I'm very forgiving with a lot of these older movies. I just thought it was cool that like this movie to me for sequel felt like it had more in common with modern day sequels than it did how they filmed movies back then. You had the little prologue thing, you had the connective tissue, you had a lot of the same actors return. It furthered the story. I think this was pretty good. I am going to rate it. I'm going to rate it an R. I'm going to rate it an R.
Good stuff. I do like this movie. I really do. In the grand scheme of things, nothing tops the original Frankenstein for me. This movie's very good. It has its downfalls to me. Like, I don't appreciate the little people in the jars, even though it was really well pulled off. It just kind of added a weird...
I thought it was, like Josh said, I thought it was magical.
And that's fine.
Like, what other scientific things is this guy getting into, man?
I thought that was more impressive than the bride, honestly.
And that's fine, to each his own, to each his own. I do, despair in the fact that the bride is only in it for 3 minutes worth of screen time. But if I watch that last 10 to 15 minutes of footage from this movie, it's fucking brilliant. The view of the castle, the shit going off, the creation of the bride, the acting involved, fucking brilliant. Love everything about it. It is the last 10 to 15 minutes of this movie is just as good as the entirety of the first movie, in my opinion. If they had only really held that throughout the entire movie, this could have been fucking substantial, in my opinion. But that being said, it was very good. I do appreciate the fact that they took more from the book. I can appreciate the evolution of the monster as it is, because I come into this knowing, based on reading the book, that he learns to talk, some humanity evolves with him, and then he turns on his humanity as much as humanity turns on him, and he's once again the empathetic and therefore as well sympathetic creature. You know what I mean? He empathizes, but you sympathize with him. It's an emotional mix when you really get down to it when it comes to Frankenstein's monster. And that's part of the thing that I've always loved about that story, is because he really did get fucked. The monster, he didn't ask to be made and to be born into this world the way that he was, and he was treated like shit, and they tried to murder him, and he didn't understand, and yet his life went to all the shit. All he looked for was reparations in the scenario. He wanted a mate, and that's what it was straight out of the book. But once again, he gets fucked in the end.
Well,
you never think you'd have somebody you'd never have somebody in like one of these like classic like cinematic studies going, he got fucked, right? But it's true. And that last scene, like I said, goosebumps. When he's like, we belong dead, and he fucking blows them up, and she's hissing at him while he's doing it. It's like, yeah, I fucking love it. It's brilliant in that way. The entirety of the movie, it's okay. I'm actually kind of really digging the shorter runtime of these movies, just because like they do tend to get a lot across in a very good quick amount of time. And just in general, I mean, you really can't beat this, and the classics like this. When I told the family that we were going to be doing this movie, they literally were all like, "I've never seen it. We got to sit and watch it," because they all love the original Frankenstein. So we sat down as a family and watched it, and they loved it. This movie aims to be as good as the first, but slightly drops below it, in my opinion. I'm going to give it an R. It's an R. It is recommended. You can't
No,
not love
that's
this
good.
movie.
That's good. But the thing is that, and I learned this a while ago because I've watched this movie multiple times. Even though it's called The Bride of Frankenstein, it's not about her.
No.
It's still exploring Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster.
Yes,
right?
100%.
And it's like it ultimately builds up to that end point where Frankenstein's monster fucking gets that, humanity and like, we belong dead and like, you know what I mean? But I mean, if you're looking at it like, I want to see that woman fucking kill people, right? Like, no, that's not what it is.
No, for sure.
But again, I feel like I had a leg up, unlike Josh, that I already knew what this movie was about. And I've watched it multiple times, right? Like, I'm sure someone watching Mac and Me for the first time would be sorely disappointed.
No. The opposite, actually.
No.
They'd be so excited.
No. I told Holly that we're going to watch it. She's not.
We have to watch it together.
not happy.
Live view.
Do we?
Have to.
Do we got to set up some sort of like an online viewing for all of us to sit down and
Definitely.
watch?
I want recorded reaction.
I hate you, Josh. We apparently have to do this, but I hate you for it. I love you, but I hate you.
It's funny how characters like the Bride and like Boba Fett, they're in the film for such a short amount of time, but when someone says the Bride of Frankenstein, and if they're to picture like a poster that they develop in their mind of all the scenes from that film, that character is the one that's going to stand out, even though the character has such a small role.
Character design, character design, character design. That's why Boba Fett was so badass, because his character design, very fundamentally, he looked interesting. It's the same thing with the Bride. She looks interesting. Who walks around with fucking hair like that? Marge Simpson. But you know what I mean? Like it's the look is iconic.
Yep.
And like, just as iconic as Frankenstein, just as iconic as Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Like these universal monsters, like you got to give them credit, man. Like they're all iconic looking in their own way. Like some more than others, but like all of them are. Wolfman and
Creature.
fucking Creature. Like they're all iconic, and I feel like that is why she is remembered. Because you're right, Josh. Like Boba Fett is literally in 2 movies, maybe 7 minutes total.
Yeah.
But he is such a beloved character. Like, he appeared on The Mandalorian 1 episode, and he was in it more than he was the entirety of the 2 movies he's
actually
from.
was a badass.
Yeah. So, I feel that it just solely came down to character design and how Elsa Lancaster, like, acted the role. Like, I thought she was great.
And that being said,
I'm going to rate this. I'm going to rate it an R.
Well, okay. And when you come down to character design, I mean, that just kind of goes to question, who here's ever seen the Son of Frankenstein or what he actually looks like?
Oh, I can't wait. We're doing it.
We're going to have to do it, but I've never actually seen who this fucking...
Monsters.
The trilogy, man. The Frankenstein cinematic universe. Like, we've got to watch it.
Apparently, we're going to be watching Son of Frankenstein at one point soon, so keep...
soon. Very soon.
So keep on for that. Great discussion tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in to the latest episode of Baycast from the Coast. Check us out. Facebook, where you can get all the latest updates from us. Like, share, and subscribe. Misunderstood Our Company. We're on YouTube. That's where you're probably watching this right now. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell everybody that you love us. Misunderstood Our Company. We also put out audio copies of this every week in the podcasting platforms, all the major ones, including but not limited to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, etc. We're also on Patreon.
Like video for your ears.
And we're also on Patreon. Open up your hearts and your wallets. Get Tim that little shot of caffeine that it requires to continue functioning. Yep, Tim. There you go. They're not paying. Oh, well, no, it just says Tim. Never mind.
Oh, can you imagine if we had Tim Hortons money?
The official podcast of Tim Hortons, eh?
Wow. I'd be drunk on caffeine.
They'd be like, you gotta stop saying fuck so much. And we'd be like, fuck you! So, until next time, Josh.
At the end of the day, it's nothing to be concerned about. Just a minor escape lunatic. Just go about your business, folks.
Nicely put. And then there's Tim.
Stay safe. Stay spooky.
Until next time, keep it creepy, everybody.
Good night.